Hello, everyone. I just wanted to come on here and talk about $80 video games and why I have an issue with them. And a lot of this stems from context of what I've gone through in my personal life. I always try to connect stuff that happens in my personal life to what's going on in different sectors of the world and to try to gain at least somewhat of an understanding of it. And so a lot of my context comes from this. I grew up a lot of my teenage years and young, yeah, my teenage years and even when I was a kid, I grew up right in the middle of the 2007 recession. So I grew up in a time that had economic turmoil. And not gonna lie, it was tough. It it was tough during those times for my family. I would say that I grew up in more of a lower middle class. Not gonna say we were poor. We I we would not be poor, and that would be unfair to say that we were poor. But I to sit here and say we had a good chunk of extra, that my family had a good chunk of extra spending money, it would be lying. We didn't have. We were probably living late paycheck to paycheck for the most part, and with that, video games came at a premium for us. It was very. We didn't have a lot of my gaming experiences were I got I usually got my a console at Christmas or something like that, like a PS2 or something along those lines when they were heavily discounted. And a lot of the games that I played over the years were games that I found on clearance racks or used or cheaply used at GameStop or some other video game store. We didn't I didn't have I wasn't gonna get the me or nor my sister were gonna get the big release that came on. And when I make that context, it concerns me about today because I feel like we're getting into an era where video games are starting to become a very a lot more expensive than when it was. It's not possible to be more of a budget conscious gamer anymore, and it concerns me because we've seen the over the years that we've seen the video game industry grow and grow and grow. And now we're getting to a point where some people are starting to get priced out. Let's be honest. The war conditions right now with the overall economy. Now, I also want to preface this that this is coming from a US perspective, so I am going to be I do lean heavily towards a more United States perspective on this issue. Sorry for anyone that's watching elsewhere, but I feel like we're at a point when the economy where inflation is going crazy. We're starting to see essential goods rise. People have less money in their pockets, and what is the video game industry doing? They're trying to suck our pockets dry, and that concerns me because they're trying to take advantage of. It feels like they're trying to take advantage of us at this point. They know, like Nintendo knows that Mario Kart's a very big franchise. It's a huge franchise. Just look how many units Mario Kart 8 Deluxe sold on Nintendo Switch. Arguably, a lot of those could have been bundles, which in my argument could is a very gray area for unit sales, but that's just me. Um, but yeah, the economy is not in the best place, and it needs to be stated that video games are a luxury. They are not essential, and when we are at this situation where less and less people are owning and have less money in their pocket. That's going to lead to less sales, in my opinion. And this all stems from the shareholders because we, if we look back at the pandemic over the COVID-19 pandemic, there's a real argument to be made that the video game industry is one of the very few industries that thrived during that time. Like they literally locked people in their house, locked people down in their houses for three plus, for 2 plus years. What did people? A lot of people turn to during that time. They turned to video games. That's why you saw Nintendo Switch boom. You saw PlayStation's sales numbers boom, and and the video game industry boomed during that time. And that's where we are today. But now that we're starting, now stuff was starting to get back to normal. All these video game, all these shareholders like, I want all those record profits that we were making during the pandemic. I want to keep those going. Why do you raise the price on games? This has nothing to do with inflation. Nothing to do with inflation. It has everything to do with shareholders being greedy. It has everything to do with that. And to make matters worse, I understand there's also rising costs in development and bigger teams and stuff like that. But that's another issue. Issue that no one's asking for these games budgets to be as high as they are. We don't need not every game needs to be a triple A. Not every game needs to be a triple A grandeur, realistic, ultra wide, open world experience. There's a lot. That's why the indie scene is thriving right now. And I hope I brought a point across in this of why I'm personally not happy with the $80 price point. I won't be buying a game at $80. I'll be flat honest. I'll be waiting for a sale. But as I said, it concerns me with being a more budget conscious gamer. Obviously, we have our backlogs and stuff, but it concerns me with the way the gaming industry is going right now. And I I'm gonna say it, I have an issue with $80 games, and I hope it doesn't come off bad in this way, but just something that hits home personally with me, and I wanted to kind of talk about it, and hopefully I got my point across. Thank you for if you watched the video to this point. Um, have a great day.